All right, awesome. Welcome to this tutorial. Previously, we've already spoken about the direct selection tool and the path selection tool. So in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about shapes. Now, Photoshop has some shapes, some definite shapes in that helps to make your work easy. Right, very simple. These are not selections. I know you know how to draw from selections already, but these are shapes. Okay, so just below the part selection tool, you'd see the rectangle tool there. You see the rectangle tool. In it, you have rounded rectangle tool, ellipse tool, polygon tool, line tool, and the custom shape tool. So for the rectangle tool, you click and drag. Okay, now you have a rectangle. Okay, now very quickly, I want to show you some things. First of all, notice that Photoshop immediately created a new layer for our rectangle tool and called it rectangle 1. Okay, so whenever you click on a shapes layer, what happens is Photoshop creates a new layer for that shape. Good. Now, also let's look at the property menu. Notice that the color your rectangle picked is your foreground color. So always bear that in mind. Your rectangle your shapes would always pick your foreground color. Good. So up here we have this tab over here, right? If you click on it, that's the you want to pick the mode of the tool. You click on it, you have shape, part, and pixels. Now you can also use these shapes tool to create a part. Okay, you can also use it to create a part. I'll show you about that shortly, but for now, let's just keep it on shape. Also, the fill tab, you pick your color here, the color you want to be inside. The fill color is the color inside, right? So let's change that to red, for instance. While your stroke color is the color outside, that is more or less like the color of the borders. So let's make our stroke color. Right now, the stroke color is on no color, right? This tab over here signifies no color. Okay, so but let's change it to blue. This blue over here, let's just stick on it. You could see that's the border, but when the border is on no color, all you see is the fill color. Good. The next tab you see over here is your stroke width. Okay, this border we're talking about is your stroke. So next color we see here is your stroke width. So if you increase the shape, if you increase the size of your stroke, you can see when you increase the size, it increases, the border increases rather. When you increase the size of your stroke, the border increases. Okay, now close to it is your border style. That is the style of the stroke. Okay, more or less like how you want it to look like. It could be a straight line, a dotted line, or a dashed line. So let's click on dotted dashed line so you see how it's like. Dotted line so you see how it's like. Let's reduce the stroke. Let's reduce the stroke size so you see, so you appreciate it better. Okay, good, good. So that's that. You can see that the dotted lines are there. Now let's take it back to the straight line style. Okay, now let's take it back to the straight line style. Good. Also, you can see the next tab you see here, your width, your height. You can decide to increase your width and your height. You can decide to increase it. Okay, your height, you can also decide to increase your height or reduce your height. Depends. When I come over here to the height icon, you can see it changes to like a hand. When you move down, you're reducing. Okay, when you move up, you're increasing. Okay, so same goes for here. You move up, you move down, you're increasing. Now this something like a chain over here, right, is what you call the constraint height and width. What that does is that it links the height to the width. So that means if you increase the width, the height increases. Okay, so if you click on it, it's on check. It's not checked now, but if you check it and then let's increase the height. Can you see that? Sorry, we increase the width and the height followed. Now let's reduce the height. You can see that the width also followed. Good. So that's that. Then very close to the height box, you have this particular box here. Okay, it's known as your path operations. Now when you click on it, you see new layer, combine shapes, subtract from front shape, intersect shapes and all that. Now, this new layer, what that means is whenever you draw a new rectangle, Photoshop puts it on a new layer. Can you see that? I draw a new rectangle, Photoshop puts it on a new layer. But if I change this to combine shapes, if I draw a new rectangle, let's undo all of this. If I change this here to combine shapes and I draw a new rectangle, Photoshop combines them and puts them in the same layer. Can you see that here? They are both in the same layer and Photoshop has combined the shape. Okay, if I change it to subtract front shape, watch what happens. You see, Photoshop has removed the front shape and created a new shape, all in the same layer. Okay, now if I change it to intersect shape areas, okay, watch this. This is just like your on the same layer. You can see that this is just like your intersect from selection and all of that. Okay, good. Exclude overlapping shapes, basically the same thing. Exclude overlapping shapes, basically the same thing. Okay, good. So remember all of this going on all on the same layer, right? Good. Now let's leave it back to our new layer. Okay, and let's delete this shape, this rectangle one we have here. So we'll draw a new rectangle. Good. Now, okay, good. Now, the next step we have here is the path alignment. The path alignment, okay. Um, Now when you click on, you can see it's defaultly set to align to the selection. If we change it to align to canvas, okay, you see, we change it to align to canvas, okay. Now, click on left edges. Let's see. Can you see that? Let's click on horizontal centers, click on right edges. Now what this does is, let me explain what this align to selection is. So align to selection is, align to selection is basically the rectangle itself. Okay, let's assume that we had a selection here with our marquee tool or whatever, and then you put in your shapes. Align to selection means you want it to align to that selection. But when you align But when you change it to align to canvas, what you have here is your canvas. What you have here is your canvas. So when you move left edges, it moves to the left. When you move horizontal centers, it stays in the center and all of that. Although I barely use this because I can easily just use my move tool and move around, right? But there are times when you want accuracy and you may decide to use this, which is equally fine. Okay. Right, so that's that about your path alignment. Okay. Now the next is what we call the rounded rectangle tool. Note that all the property menu or the property, note that the property bar of all the shape tools are very similar, just with very slight adjustments. Now for the rectangle, for the rounded rectangle tool, it has a radius. So that radius has to do with the edges of the rectangle. You can see this rectangle is similar to what we're used to, except that the edges are curved. You can see the edges. It's not like your usual rectangle. The edges here are curved. Okay. Now, I want us to increase the radius here to 50. Okay. Now, let's draw another rectangle. Can you see the difference between the curves? Now, let's increase the radius here to 100. And let's draw another rectangle. Okay, you can see that the edges of this are more curved than all the other two. So that is what your rounded rectangle is. It has a curved edge, okay, a curved corner. All the remaining items you see on the property bar are basically the same thing. That's that about your rounded rectangle tool. The next tool we're going to be looking at is your ellipse tool. Just as let's I want us to delete all of this first. Okay, delete. So for your ellipse tool, it's a circle. You click and you drag, okay? You click and you drag, right? But just as we already know, you want it to be a perfect circle. You hold down shift to constrain the proportions and you click, okay? Alternatively, with your once you just click at the center, you're going to get this dialog box. For every of the shapes tool you click, once you click on the for every of the shapes tool, For every of the shape tool, once you click on your canvas, it brings up a dialog box. You could then decide the dimensions. Okay, so for the circle now, we are using 100 pixel by 100 pixel. Okay, you can see that. Okay, or you could alternatively just draw it yourself. Okay, holding down the shift key. All right, every other thing remains the same as your rectangle and your rounded rectangle tool. So the next we're going to be looking at is the polygon tool. Now, what is a polygon? A polygon is basically a shape, a regular shape that has several sides. Okay, a polygon has more than 4 sides usually. Okay, so for the polygon, you can see the difference here is you can see sides. When you click on sides, you can see 5 sides. So now let's click and draw. You could see it has created a polygon with 5 sides. Now let's change this from 5. Let's make it 8. Okay, now let's click and draw. You can see it has created a polygon with 8 sides. Okay, so that's how it is. You can make this any number you want it to be. 12. It creates a polygon with that number of sides. Okay, that is how your polygon tool works. Then you have your line tool. Your line tool is very similar with the rest of your tools, only that it has a weight here. The weight here has to do with the thickness of the line. The weight here has to do with the thickness of the line. So you can see weight 5 pixels. When you click on the 5 pixels, you have a straight line. When we make this 10 pixels and then we draw, you can see we have a thicker line. When we make it 20 pixels and we draw, we'll have a much thicker line. Then also, if you want to draw a straight line, hold down your shift key, click and draw. You get a straight line that aligns to the horizontal. You also hold down your shift key, click and draw down. You get a straight line that aligns to the vertical. Hold down your shift key, click and draw slanting. You get a straight line at a perfect angle, 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Good. So that's that about your line tool. Now the final tool we're going to be looking at here is your custom shapes tool. I'd like to delete all the other layers for this. So the final tool is your custom shapes tool. Now Photoshop has several unique shapes. Okay, several unique shapes. You may need some of these shapes with time. You can also download some shapes and add in. Right, Photoshop has several unique shapes. But when you click on this shapes tab on your property bar, you click down, you can see several shapes. Okay, several shapes. So for instance, the love, I can click on the love, click and draw. Okay, I could also come click on this arrow sign, click and draw. Or and again, the shapes are a lot more than this. Okay, to see more of the shapes, click this gear icon. You can see they are grouped into several classes. So click all, then okay. You could see that you have a lot more shapes here, a lot of them, including this shopping cart. This shopping cart shape. Okay, you have a lot more shape here. This is an envelope. Okay, so that's that about the shapes tool. Okay, let me show you how you can create parts with the shapes tool. So let's delete this layer. Good. Now and we're going to do that with the let me say with your custom shapes tool. It's the same thing with your rectangle shape tool. It's the same thing with your polygon shape tool. Okay, so I click here and I select let's say I select, where is the love? I'm looking for the love sign just so I show you this. Good. So this is the love sign here. I've selected this. Then I go over to this tab here and change the mode to parts. Right? I change the mode to parts. Now I click and I draw. Okay? This part is just as though I did it with a pencil. As you can see here, it's a part. Okay? You can right click on it, or rather, you can put in your, if you have your pencil here, for instance, you can right click on it and make it a selection. Okay, it becomes a selection. Okay, alternatively, you could still use a direct selection tool to pick out an anchor point and edit it as you want. Okay, you see, you could pick out your direct selection tool and edit it as you want. So that's and how you could use your shapes tool to create parts. We've come very far in this Photoshop tutorial. The remaining videos are just a wrap up and very important. You need to see them, right? These are going to be the last videos in this series, but very, very important. All right, see you in the next video.